What's up, guys? Welcome to the Saturday show. Now on Saturdays, I like to go back through the week of Newswave, talk about all the big topics that happened throughout the week, which we had some pretty big ones, including obviously VR with Nintendo, kind of with Labo. That was a fun one. And then, of course, some E3 news with EA, just kind of not doing the live conference, but still doing some stuff like live streaming. A lot to go over there, and we're going to go over all of that. As always, guys, enjoy these videos with the like button. Also consider subscribing as we kind of roll forward towards our 300,000 subscriber goal, which is actually coming up a bit faster than I thought it would at the end of this past year. So pretty cool there. We're going to start today with some quick news. We're going to start with Octopath Traveler. Now, if you missed the news yesterday, it was put out there by Square that they're going to be having a prequel go over to cell phones, at least in Japan for now, as a free-to-play style game. Now, they put out a trailer kind of showing it off a bit. It is called Octopath Traveler Champion of the Continent. As we know now, it's currently heading to Japan first. We don't know if it's going to be going anywhere else, but more than likely it will, just because Octopath Traveler has sold well. They released numbers of about 1.5 million so far. Looks like it'll keep that 2D HD style that they even put out there as a quote in the trailer. And of course, we saw them trademark it and everything, so it is something that they have been thinking about for a little while now. Looks like it'll keep all the same gameplay mechanics, and it will actually be free to play with in-app purchases. So yes, it's going to do this pretty much the standard that we've seen in all cell phone games for the most part, and that's, of course, free-to-play and microtransactions. How will it affect the gameplay? It's hard to say. I've seen a lot of people take guesses here, whether there's a stamina meter of some kind, and maybe this will give you ways to grind faster, or there have also been theories that because there are so many characters that appear in the game, it seems. I mean, they showed 8, and they were all seemingly different. People are also thinking, oh, maybe you summon characters, because that's what we see in those gacha style games where you summon characters for your teams in certain, battles and everything and then fight with them. Maybe they keep introducing characters. As far as we know now, though, it is a prequel or a spin-off of the standard Octopath Traveler that we know on the Switch. They also told us that another game is coming down the road. This just seems like a way for Square to do what they do with all of their franchises and introduce a cell phone version of it. Again, in this case, a spin-off. They did it with Bravely Default. They've done it with Final Fantasy way too many times at this point. So I'm not shocked or surprised that they would do this. And it just means, of course, the Octopath Traveler name will be out there and things other than just a Switch game. It'll be on phones in Japan, which, as we know, is very, very big. You can sign up March 12th to be a part of a demo that'll go out. And after that, we'll probably find out more information about how microtransactions and other stuff work. Interesting there, though, and we'll just look forward to whatever the next game is, the sequel or just their next iteration in the HD 2D series as they go along here. Probably next year is what I'm thinking is when we'll see the Octopath Traveler team, their next big console game. And starting the week on Monday, we saw CNN and other news outlets attempt to cover Pokemon Sword and Shield with some funny results. So far, the funniest attempt at covering Pokemon came from a Spanish newspaper that showed Pokemon Gun as one of the titles. Johnny Angel says, "Oh, it looks like Pokemon was the dead franchise Nintendo was reviving, huh? Thanks for clearing that up, CNN." Johnny, you figured it out, because it's been 4 months since we've had a Pokemon game. That thing was dead. So I'm glad Nintendo is reviving Pokemon so that we can, of course, move on with the series. It's a big deal because Nintendo is bringing it back to, of course, help the Switch, since the Switch is on the decline right now, certainly going into 2019. Now, it was CNN taking a shot at covering something that, let's be real, mainstream media struggles with video games and entertainment in general sometimes, and this wasn't their best article. Although Pokemon Gun was good. It wasn't them, but that was at least comical. The CNN one was just kind of bad. I mean, they talked to Michael Pachter, and he gave them some information, and they tried to figure things out even from there, and it just wasn't great. So it's hard, again, to look towards mainstream media for some stuff like video game news or analysis at times. Look towards people who do more of the financial stuff when it comes to that, but outside of that, generally, you can see people on YouTube or obviously different websites that you might visit for your news. You're just probably not going to turn on like your daily news at like 6 or something and see like actual insight into a video game or anything. It's just still not, to them, something that they feel like covering constantly. I mean, the rest of the world is always moving super fast anyways. There's always something else to cover, but it's always fun to see what they can do when they get a shot at it, because a lot of times it turns into more of like Comedy Central. Tuesday, an odd issue with Anthem was starting to make the rounds as it was shutting down PlayStation 4 consoles during gameplay. This causes PS4s to encounter problems on the next startup, with some users reporting bricked consoles. Mr. Cruz says, gamer upplay Anthem, PS4, this ain't it, Chief, breaks itself. That's something I saw a lot of people making jokes about. It's like not even the PlayStation wants to play the game, it's shutting itself down. Anthem's been obviously a punching bag for pretty much all of gaming, in general, the community. I mean, some people like the game, and I'll admit at times I was enjoying myself, but it did become rather repetitive and boring towards the end. The gunplay was good, the conversation and everything that you can have with some of the characters in the game didn't really seem to mean much at all, like nothing changed or didn't feel any different when I was making choices, so I don't think that's the standard BioWare stuff that we've seen in the past with games like Mass Effect, for example, or Knights of the Old Republic. So this is kind of the issue I see with live services, again, is that everything can give you the illusion that you're getting choices, but it all kind of has to line up because you're going to go online and everyone's going to be playing together anyway through these missions. So unfortunately, it doesn't matter. But yeah, it was really funny to see people make those kind of jokes about Anthem just because the PlayStation 4 seemingly was rejecting it. Lord says, Anthem, perfect example of why I no longer buy new games. I purposely stay behind games, get cheaper, and by then, most of the bugs are dealt with. Yeah. Live services, again, in particular, is kind of the one you want to stay behind on if you can, because they do kind of mirror what we see with things like MMOs. Just as an example, that's kind of what they want it to be, because like you have to always be online and everything, and of course it was fairly lucrative back then before what I think happened was a big bubble bursting around the MMO. There were so many free-to-play MMOs coming out at one point, it was insanity, even paid ones, and I think it started to kind of run out a bit, and now it's kind of morphed in these live services the bigger companies doing. Yeah, you might as well wait most times. Honestly, here's the thing, Anthem is probably going to be very cheap in a few months because they'll come out with the next DLC. Think Destiny at this point. Look at Anthem like Destiny, where eventually they'll just give you Anthem for free. They did it with Destiny too. You basically logged into your Blizzard.net account or your battle account, and it was like, hey, you have Destiny 2. Would you like to install it? There are people who paid, $60 for that when it first came out. Then, a year or so later, it's like, oh, here you go. You can just have it. I think Best Buy even did a promotion where if you bought a game, like a new release, they just gave you Destiny 2, you can just have it. So Anthem is going to drop in price fairly quickly, actually. Probably over the course of a month or two, you'll see it start to get slashed heavily, maybe half price, even less. Might even have promotions around it because they want to keep people playing. So most live service games, unless you absolutely need it, like The Division 2 is coming up as an example. I think it looks better than Anthem. I think it does. But you're probably going to have bugs at launch, and you'll probably have price cuts a few months later. So keep that in mind with some of these games. Wednesday, we saw Turok get announced for the Switch, as well as a late-night announcement that a Labo VR kit was going to be released in April. This Gen Last Gen says, I hope people are not getting their hopes up for this being a full-fledged VR unit, thinking it will work with full games is dumb. Just think of it as Nintendo's version of the Viewmaster. That's actually a good example there, a good comparison is the Viewmaster. I think when I started looking over this more and more over the last few days after it was announced, I started to realize a few things. One, it looks very similar to Google Cardboard. I've tried Google Cardboard. Wasn't the best experience. It was one of those cool little things that you get. You try it out for maybe an hour and you go, oh, that was neat, and then it goes in the closet. That reminds me of Labo, actually, with the Variety Kit and things like the piano. That was neat, and then it just goes away, and you don't really play with them after that. That's kind of what I see with the VR experience. The only difference, maybe Nintendo plays around with some of the software. Like, I think Mario Kart is going to go to it in some way because, of course, when you're doing racing games, you don't have to move around much. Like, Wipeout worked great. Gran Turismo, even though I think the experience is very limited on the PlayStation 4, was good, like in terms of the actual experience in VR. It's when you'd have to get up and move around. Also, I don't think the Switch would support it anyway. So it's going to be something that isn't going to be the best experience at all. It's going to be like seriously the floor, like the bare minimum experience. And of course, it looks like you're going to have to hold it to your face. Seriously, if you look at the pictures, they have the goggles or the cardboard up to your face and you're holding the Joy-Con controller like this, the two controllers, and playing. That tells me they don't want it against your face for very long. Nintendo is concerned that if you strap it to your face, it's not going to be great for you. So that kind of tells me what I need to know there. Nagrala says, there's no way this will work well. The resolution and frames per second is too low. Yeah, so the resolution is fairly low at 720p. You're absolutely right. And yeah, the frame rate is capped at 60. Most look for around 90 if you can. If you can get higher than that, that's even better. But it's going to be a lower frame rate in terms of what we know in VR now, and it's going to be a lower resolution at 720 because that's going to get cut in half. They're going to give you two different displays, and they're going to kind of put that over. Although Nintendo's a company that gave us a very low resolution screen on the 3DS still. And the 2DS, like 240p? So they're not a stranger to like low resolution stuff. Again, this seems more like an experiment to see how it would go over. It is a low price point. It's what, $40 to get in. Some people will just be like, okay, let's go try it out. Let's see. It's the same reason people bought the Galaxy Gear or like the terrible headsets for their phone. They already have a phone, and it's $15 for one of those plastic things you strap to your face, the headsets. Most people just were like, all right, let's just try it. Let's see what it's like. And even if you don't like it, you're not out hundreds of dollars like a PlayStation VR or sometimes $1,000 with like a Vive. So I get it's not going to be great. I don't think Nintendo thinks it's going to be great either in terms of experience. So that's why it's priced so low. And then I guess if you want the rest, you can buy the expansion separately, or if you are dead set on that Labo VR experience, you can just get everything for $80. Thursday, we saw yet another issue with Anthem where a bug caused one of the starting guns to be stronger than guns you get at the end of the game. We also saw a statement from cyber agents saying Nintendo told them to take it easy with in-game monetization and Dragalia lost. Aiden says, it's sad that an odd take for many people regarding mobile games is actually being pro-consumer. So it's an interesting situation here with Nintendo because, of course, they're partnering with companies who don't necessarily care about Nintendo's brand or image going forward. They want to make a ton of money right now. And we've talked about Activision, we've talked about EA, companies that are growing very fast and they're running into a bit of a ceiling right now. We're seeing it. And that's kind of the thing. Exponential growth leads to, well, investors being disappointed. Nintendo kind of touched on this, or at least Miyamoto did at one point. I've said this before, where he said the industry has to be very careful with these monetization strategies. And I think Nintendo cares more about their brand, obviously, than having one mobile game just make a ton of money very quickly, because they're looking more in the long run. It's not necessarily that they're pro-consumer with that decision. It's more or less they're pro-Nintendo brand with that decision, because they're looking outside of things like, obviously, they're doing their theme park and everything, and they do a lot of stuff, even outside of gaming at this point, because their IPs are so strong. They're doing the Mario movie, so there's a lot of stuff going on there, and they definitely don't want to be attached to things like, we've seen EA at this point, get attached to gambling, and Disney had to step in and say, hey, you guys are attached to us too, so take it easy. That's another great example, is when EA got reprimanded by Disney. Think of it kind of that way with Nintendo and Cyber Agent. Nintendo saying, hey, take it easy. We don't want you to damage our brand. We got things going on outside of this one cell phone game. In fact, as a follow-up to that, I thought it was pretty good. Ronald actually said, in a world dominated by EA and Activision, it is odd. I think Mark Twain said that if the world is running towards a cliff, the one running in the opposite direction will seem crazy. And again, we're in a world, absolutely, as he's saying, where Activision, EA, even Ubisoft are pushing the boundary right now as to what they can get away with these in-app purchases. And it's not even in-app, it's in-game full $60 purchases that are loot box enabled and, of course, randomized gambling essentially in games. And it works in the short term, but there's only so many people that you can get the money from, unless those microtransactions continue to get more and more aggressive. And that, again, is the issue with games right now, is that we could run into this weird video game crash because EA and Activision push so hard that the gamers just say, nah, not anymore. No FIFA for me, no Madden for me. I'm just going to kind of move on. And finally on Friday, we saw an update hit the PS4 that allows iOS devices like an iPhone or iPad use remote play and allow you to use your PlayStation 4 even when away from the console without needing a Vita. We also saw EA decide to not hold a typical live press conference at E3, instead going with several focused live streams with gameplay. I Am Not Human says, EA can skip all they want, just give us Skate 4. So I thought about this. I say this every E3, and I'll probably keep saying it every E3 because EA is dumb and probably won't ever do it, but I do want Skate 4, and I wondered, wait, how would EA do this with a live stream? Would they say, tune into this live stream here as we reveal some new games and announcements coming for 2019? Because remember, before we had one press conference where everything was there and they could just reveal new things as they go through the press conference, and we usually expected new games to be revealed there. they're going to have multiple live streams for things like Jedi Fallen Order, probably whatever the next Titanfall-looking thing is, and maybe something new like Escape 4, just as an example. And I'm wondering how they would do that if there's one live stream to introduce everything, right? Just as a, maybe even like are they going to do their own like Nintendo Direct thing where they like just have everything pre-recorded and it just happens in 15 minutes and then it's like, oh, then we'll have these live streams for gameplay sessions and everything. That's the thing I'm trying to figure out here with EA, because they're going to still hold an EA Play, they just won't put on this terrible press conference for all of us to watch. But either way, yes, Skate 4, absolutely, I'm in. Then I'll probably have to worry about having things like boards, graphics, t-shirts, shoes. They're going to open an entire store in this game just for clothing apparel with microtransactions. I actually can't believe EA hasn't done anything with Skate at this point, just because it seems so easy to get hundreds of dollars from people. That'll be interesting to see. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for the Saturday show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys give the video a like if you liked it, dislike if not. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it is Nintendo VR, maybe we'll talk a bit about that, Anthem, maybe we'll talk about EA and E3 at 2019. You're probably, a lot of people are happier that EA's not going to have this long press conference, but hey, what do you want to see from EA? If they're going to do a lot of live streaming there, just all focused, like Jedi Fallen Order, that seems like that could be kind of neat, or maybe Skate 4. Let me know what you guys think about that down below. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.